Hello and welcome everyone to the Valoric Center for Entrepreneurship at American University. My name is Caroline Bruckner and I'm a tax professor and the managing director of the Kogod Tax Policy Center here in the Kogod School of Business. And I wanted to take a quick moment to introduce you to the Kogod Tax Policy Center. For those of you that don't know us, we are a nonpartisan research center housed in the Kogod School of Business, and we put out research on issues ranging from small business tax literacy and education to tax compliance challenges of the independent workforce and gig workers, access to capital challenges of women business owners, and importantly for today, tax administration modernization challenges. At Kogod, though, more broadly, we are experts on AI, analytics, and digital transformation, and we build this expertise into our research and curriculum. For example, our research center earlier this year, together with IBM's Center for the Business of Government, produced research on how tax agencies can effectively adopt and deploy AI in tax administration. This research reflects opportunities and challenges of tax agencies using AI, and we were able to draw on comments from Commissioner Werfel, other IRS folks, and tax agency administration folks from around the world to talk about how AI has the potential to improve taxpayer education and outreach, how AI can facilitate tax compliance and enforcement activities, and how AI needs to be rolled out alongside risk mitigation strategies and government structures. But what we're here to talk about today is the IRS Digital Transformation Plan, which will be introduced by IRS Commissioner Danny Werfel, who is marking his one-year anniversary with the IRS this week. And he will be presenting a presentation for 20 minutes and then be in conversation with our very own Dean, David Marchek. They worked together on the 2020 presidential transition, so it'll be great to hear them recap some old times and shed some new light. So thank you so much for joining us.
On my one-year anniversary of being IRS Commissioner, it is an honor to be here at this historic university. The IRS is an agency that affects all Americans, and a university is a fitting place to talk about the future IRS, because you are at the start of a journey where you will be filing your taxes with the IRS for many, many years to come. Right now, the IRS stands at a historic crossroads. There is an opportunity we have not had before, a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Of course, you may be wondering, what opportunity? That is the same question I had when I was home one Friday afternoon in the fall of 2022 when I received a phone call from the Biden administration asking if I would be willing to serve as IRS Commissioner. Now, once I could get my jaw off the floor, because this was a surprise and a great honor, my first question to the White House and Treasury Department leadership was, what are you hoping that I or any IRS commissioner would achieve in this role at this time? And the answer they gave me encapsulates the once-in-a-generation opportunity. They told me the next commissioner will lead the IRS through the most important tech-enabled transformation of a government agency in U.S. history. So again, my jaw dropped to the floor. And I will be honest with you, part of me suspected that this might be a bit of hyperbole, something of a sales pitch to get me to throw my hat in the ring for the job. Today, I will show you that this was no exaggeration. As I consider the world that you live in and what you have come to expect to do digitally, on your phone and tablets, without paper, from wherever you are in the world, I have come to realize that the modernization of the IRS is a generational imperative. But ensuring the IRS stays pace with an ever-increasing digital world is just part of the imperative. Our race to catch up with the modern economy, if we complete it, will unlock three critical results. First, it unlocks our ability to ensure access, engage in communities, and make tax administration work better. Second, It unlocks our ability to increase accountability for those that seek to inappropriately exploit the tax system. And third, it unlocks our ability to restore trust and increase fairness in the IRS and the tax system. So let's dive in and explore why the work being done to transform the IRS is so vital and actually quite beneficial to you, your family, and your community. I'll tell you about the momentum we have today and where that momentum can take us. Now, I actually remember the moment I realized that this was not hype or an exaggeration. It was our morning staff meeting last fall. And the night before, I had been at the Service for America Awards at the Kennedy Center, the biggest award ceremony for federal employees, the Oscars for government. I was excited, and I challenged the IRS team to win one of these big awards next year. They asked me for an example of an award winner, and I immediately shared with them my favorite award from the night before. It was a team of NASA scientists who sent a rocket into space that bullseyed an asteroid 7 million miles away, going 40,000 miles per hour. These NASA scientists hit the asteroid dense center, and not only did they hit it bullseye, they changed its trajectory. For the first time, a group of NASA scientists and engineers proved that if an asteroid were ever headed for Earth, they could deflect it and save humanity. My team looked at me sheepishly and said, "Commissioner, that is going to be tough to beat." And then a shrewd member of my team chimed in and said, "But where did NASA get the money for that rocket?" It's collected by the IRS. And that is the moment I fully appreciated how important the IRS is and how monumental this task and opportunity is. And it's not just ensuring we have the funds so NASA scientists can save the planet from an asteroid. It's ensuring the government has funds to keep our food safe, our skies safe, our roads safe. So if we are essential to funding so many of the things that make life in America possible, I am left with one burning question. Why does Homer Simpson not like us? Well, there's supposed to be a video here. Let's see if it pops on. All right, I don't think we're going to have the video. But in the video, basically, it'll probably pop on while I'm telling the story, Homer drives by the...
Ooh, look, Homer, the IRS.
Boo! Oh, boo yourself.
There you go. So why does Homer Simpson not like us? It may be that he thinks he's paying too much in taxes. It may be he thinks that his taxes are far too complicated. These are things that are actually outside of the IRS's control. We do not set the tax rate or write the tax code. But if Homer and other tax-paying Americans are upset that we aren't answering the phone, or we're taking too long to send a refund, or otherwise increasing stress and frustration as they navigate their tax responsibilities rather than decreasing it, then we can and should turn things around. But we have a large mountain to climb. These are snapshots of the IRS just a few years ago. Paper returns piled up in hallways and cafeterias, shuttered tax assistance centers so people couldn't get help. So I suppose I can understand why we may be booed by Homer Simpson or other non-cartoon Americans for being frustrated with the IRS. But how did we get to this point? Overwhelmed by paper tax forms when the rest of the world had moved beyond paper, deteriorating customer service, anemic audit rates, stagnant technology. It was the result of two trends over the last couple of decades. The first trend, the IRS had been underfunded for far too long. From 2010 to 2021, the IRS budget was slashed by more than 22%. During this decade of budget cuts, the American population grew and annual returns increased by more than 15 million. along with countless changes to the tax laws, an increasingly complicated financial environment, globalization, additional currencies, exponential growth in digital commerce, and other factors that increase the size and complexity of America's tax system. As our budget declined, but our plate of responsibilities grew, IRS employees worked through it, where long hours and sweat equity would often get the job done because innovative technologies were not available. Enter the pandemic. The IRS workforce heroically managed through the pandemic, including running the tax system and successfully getting emergency payments to hundreds of millions of Americans and small businesses across the country. But eventually, the bottom fell out. Coming out of the pandemic, we were so buried in paper backlogs, understaffed, and hobbled by stagnant technology, we literally could no longer answer the phones or keep our walk-in centers open. Enter the Inflation Reduction Act in 2022. And finally, we had new funding to not only build the IRS back to par performance, but also to build it for the future. And even though this new law provides a 10-year runway for the IRS to rebuild, it has been clear since day one that we needed to show results immediately. Well, this is our Austin cafeteria today. Funds from the new law allowed us to dig out of a deep hole, get back to better service standards, and lay the foundation for the transformation to come. New funds are catalyzing a new era for the IRS. The era of unprocessed returns filling hallways and cafeterias has ended. Our phone center is back and operating with record efficiency. All of our walk-in centers are open, fully staffed, and expanding around the country. And we have new tools on irs.gov and have seen record traffic to the site. We've launched more digital tools in the last 2 years than we were able to launch in the last 20. And sometimes it's the little things, like that this filing season we added a callback option on our main 1-800 number, ending the era of taxpayers being required to stay on hold listening to elevator music. When you are funded, you can make these types of improvements. When you are not, your operations remain in the past. Now, we have an opportunity to move beyond just base performance and build a 21st century tax agency to serve the American people in the manner they expect and the level they deserve. Our vision for the future is an IRS that is truly effective in easing the stress caused by our complex tax laws, simpler forms, more intuitive processes, and a staff that's increasingly trained around areas of empathy and understanding, who have the tools to help taxpayers meet their obligations easily and fairly. But let me make it even more real for you. My parents, who are in their 80s, have never used an ATM. They go into a bank, talk to the teller, and leave with cash. My children, on the other hand, who are in their 20s, have never set foot in a bank, not to open an account and certainly not to get cash. Think about how you interact with your bank. When you buy something with a debit card, that transaction shows up on your online account before you even leave the store. But when you make a payment to the IRS, it can take days, even a week, to show up on your online account. When your bank is concerned about fraud, it will text you and let you sort it out instantly from your smartphone. When the IRS thinks there may be fraud with your account, we send you a letter. We're working to change that and to transform to be ready for the new digital economy. With historic funding through the new law, we're building an IRS where all taxpayers can meet all their responsibilities, including all interactions with the IRS, from questions to payments to resolutions, in a completely digital manner if they choose. We're catalyzing this transformation because a digital-first IRS is a generational imperative. It's how most taxpayers want to interact with us in the 21st century. But the digital transformation is also the keystone that helps unlock the true potential of the IRS. Here's how. When financial, retail, and travel companies moved everything online, which accelerated during COVID, the number of people calling their 1-800 numbers dropped precipitously, as did the number of people showing up to bricks and mortar locations. Our vision is not only where we can deliver everything for taxpayers online, it's one where we redeploy our capacity, our employees, and we will absolutely still need our employees, who will now have the time and tools to focus on helping the people that need it most and increasing scrutiny on bad actors and purposeful tax evaders. In terms of unlocking capacity to help the people that need our help the most, less time on phones means more time our employees can spend helping victims of identity theft and scams. Less times correcting 1040 forms means our employees can spend more time engaging in communities, supporting walk-in sites and volunteer tax clinics that assist low-income filers and helping taxpayers who can't afford to hire an accountant to get it right the first time. Less time processing paper returns means our employees can spend more time helping every taxpayer, regardless of income, claim credits like the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is an economic lifeline for so many. Yet 7 million eligible low-income taxpayers each year never claim the credit. We can unlock our potential to do more to help them. A digital IRS does not mean we're walking away from in-person service. It means we can do more to help the people who need it the most. Our digital transformation to unlock these new capacities has already begun. For example, we made significant upgrade this year to Where's My Refund tool. Also, this filing season, we launched Direct File, a system where taxpayers in 12 pilot states can file their tax returns online directly with the IRS for free. Direct File is almost tailor-made for students and young people with simple tax situations. So if your home is in a state pilot, check it out. Go to directfile.irs.gov to see if you qualify. And here's an example of what's coming in the near future. A clear way to communicate with the IRS and help protect taxpayers from scams and schemes. We will have a screen on your online account like this, letting you know if the IRS is trying to contact you. Why is this important? Because we have too many bad actors calling and texting, pretending to be the IRS, and tricking too many Americans into pulling out their credit card and paying them a fake tax debt. In the future, if you get such a call or text, you will just need to go to your online account. If it shows a green banner like this, then the actual IRS is not trying to reach you. It's not us. Hang up, ignore the text, and if you're willing, report this to us online so we can investigate and attempt to hold the bad actor accountable. So you can see right there how our digital transformation frees up capacity to better crack down on scam artists. But it also unlocks capacity for the IRS to increase scrutiny on those that intentionally evade their tax responsibilities. Taxes filed fully digital will significantly cut down on basic mistakes and errors, freeing up our employees to focus on the more complex issues. Complex areas of noncompliance overwhelmingly occur among our highest wealth and largest taxpayers. And while many wealthy and large taxpayers are doing the right thing, too many are using complexity as a way to inappropriately shield their income. Less resources dedicated to sorting paper returns means more resources to harness tools such as artificial intelligence to pierce through this complexity and find hidden income. In fact, we are already making use of AI to find those complex partnerships, some of the largest in the world, that are hiding income behind complexity. That same AI, though, will also help with our precision so that we don't need to contact the partnerships that are playing by the rules and doing the right thing. Using these new AI models, we recently opened audits on 76 high-risk, complex partnerships, including hedge funds and publicly traded partnerships. The digital transformation unlocks new capacities to broaden our reach and scrutinize a lot more high-risk complex filers than we previously could. Our digital transformation unlocks our ability to focus our enforcement efforts on those high-income groups that for too long have flown under the radar. With new funding, we have already served notices to 125,000 high-income taxpayers who failed to file a federal income tax return since 2017, including 25,000 people with incomes over $1 million. These non-filers represent more than $100 billion in financial activity. We're cracking down on 1,600 millionaires and billionaires with delinquent tax debts, and we will not allow these higher income individuals to fail to do their basic civic duty of filing a tax return and paying what they owe. A more digital IRS unlocks our ability to audit the inappropriate write-offs for personal use of corporate assets such as corporate jets. In my first year here, the IRS team has already collected nearly $500 million from millionaires and billionaires to ensure fairness in our tax system, and we are just getting started. So this is how our digital platform for taxpayers will unlock our employees' capacity to help people in need and to increase scrutiny where it is needed most. But perhaps most critical is using new funding and our transformation to unlock our ability to ensure fairness for everyone who plays by the rules and help restore trust in the system. No issue is more important than fairness. Just over a year ago, in fact, in the days leading up to my Senate confirmation hearing, researchers at several universities and the U.S. Treasury published a study that Black taxpayers were 3 to 5 more times likely to be audited than other taxpayers. Our processes were resulting in a disparate impact on Black taxpayers. At my hearing, I not only committed to fixing this as a top priority if confirmed, but I became even more motivated to become the IRS Commissioner. I wanted to fix this. Any indication of racial bias in our work is unacceptable. After being confirmed, I immediately met with the IRS team studying the issue. We dedicated resources to quickly evaluate the extent to which our exam priorities, automated processes, and the data we rely on contributed to this disparity. Since I've been commissioner, I've been meeting with communities that were impacted, listening, hearing their concerns, sharing our regret, and outlining the actions we're taking, including substantially reducing the number of audits where racial disparities were identified, and making changes to our algorithms specifically intended to address the disparity. And we are now ready to invest new resources in technologies that can help identify any disparities across dimensions of race, ethnicity, age, gender, and geography. And where we are using that research to continuously refine our approaches across our compliance and our enforcement efforts. Above all, we're trying to rebuild trust. We're overhauling compliance and education efforts to advance our commitment to fair, equitable, and effective tax administration and hold ourselves accountable to the taxpayers we serve. I'm the 50th IRS Commissioner. For 150 years, dating back to President Lincoln, the IRS really just focused on assessment and collection. But more recently, the IRS role has evolved. As tax laws are increasingly playing a larger role in addressing the most pressing challenges of our time, IRS employees today are hard at work on programs to cut child poverty, using tools like the expanded child tax credit, programs to expand healthcare access. The reason you can stay on your parents' insurance through age 26 is the Affordable Care Act. And much of the way the ACA is implemented is through the IRS and the tax system. And now on programs to address the threat of climate change through the hundreds of billions of dollars in Inflation Reduction Act tax credits. With new funding, we can support policies that improve the lives of all Americans, and we can ignite the transformation to meet this critical moment in tax collection and beyond. But to succeed and truly build an IRS for the 21st century, we need you. We need accountants, lawyers, and finance experts. But we also need data scientists, engineers, experts in AI and human behavior. No matter what you're studying, we need your talents, your expertise, and most importantly, your passion for change and for service. And we're hiring. In the summer of 1963, John F. Kennedy came here to American University's commencement, where he called for the first nuclear test ban treaty with the Soviet Union. It was the start of a historic effort that led to greater stability and peace in the world. President Kennedy, by the way, is the only president to ever visit the IRS headquarters. I pass a photo of his speech in our building every day. President Kennedy told AU graduates in 1963, "No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe that we can do it again." Thankfully, tax administration is a far cry from nuclear diplomacy. But it's not lost on us that the decisions and actions of the IRS affect the lives of every American directly and indirectly. Those are the stakes in this effort to solve what has for too long been unsolvable, to undertake the most important tech-enabled transformation of a government agency in U.S. history. Catalyzed by historic funding, guided by reason and spirit, we can transform the IRS for the 21st century. We can meet taxpayers where they are, support them to meet their obligations, and make tax administration work better. We can increase accountability for those who try to exploit the tax system, restore trust, and increase fairness. And we can better serve the country and you, our future taxpayers, in the years and decades to come. Thank you.
I have my IRS stress ball that they're handing out there.
I need one of those.
Let me first thank the IRS team and also the Kogod team for pulling this event together in a very short time. I know they were working over the weekend. And let me also say that that was an extraordinary speech. I've been in Washington, D.C. for 33 years, 5 agencies. I've never seen a government official give a speech like that. Usually it's behind a wood podium, looking down at notes, going through an 8-point plan with 3 subparts. So I think your speech in some ways was a metaphor for what you're trying to do, which is open up the IRS, be transformational, and create change. So I really want to compliment you on that.
I appreciate that.
Let me start with a question about you personally. I've known you for a while, and I've always thought highly of you, but you were kind of peaking at your career, partner at Boston Consulting Group, running a big practice, making a lot of money, and you gave that up to take one of the hardest jobs in government. So why did you do that?
You know, it's a passion and a calling for public service. There was a moment in 2013 when I was at the IRS. I was the acting IRS commissioner in the middle of a very challenging moment. And in the first few days, I was doing meet and greets with senators and members of Congress. And I met with Senator John McCain. And I met with him in his office. And, you know, we were in the news. There were protests outside of IRS buildings. It was a very tough job and moment to go into. And Senator McCain said to me, "You must be someone that likes to run towards the gunfire." And I thought, I aspire to be that. Am I that person? You know, that's such a big, heavy compliment to receive and such a motivating thing to say. And I've reflected a lot,
Senator McCain, yeah.
Especially from Senator McCain. And so for me, it set an inspiration to be that type of person. And I think from that moment forward, I thought, that I don't know if I am, but I want to be. And so if I get asked or the call to do something hard and challenging but important, I want to be that person that Senator McCain suggested I could be.
So this is a bold, ambitious, audacious plan. How much is it going to cost?
It is, you know, we have roughly $60 billion under the Inflation Reduction Act to spend over 10 years. It is a big, monumental task to do all the modernization that's required to achieve this vision. We are making progress. As I said, we have momentum. But this vision where taxpayers around the nation can just go online and get everything done, there's a lot of data that needs to be cleaned, technology that needs to be cleaned up, process that needs to be re-engineered. Behind the scenes at the IRS, our technology is old. It's on old language. It's not cloud-enabled. There's just a ton of work that needs to be done. And also, we have a lot of investments we need to do the types of things I described in terms of reaching taxpayers where they are. We need people on the ground in communities, helping them with their earned income tax credits, and we need more accountants and experts to help us with the number of high-income filers out there that are evading their taxes is more than we have staff to handle and scrutinize today.
So you're going to invest in technology and AI, which will help you be more efficient, and you're going to spend $60 billion. How much do you think you're going to actually recover, and is that $60 billion investment a good investment for taxpayers?
It is an incredibly good investment. The IRS is a good investment. Not only are we going to ease stress and anxiety and create an easier way for you to do your taxes, get things done in less time, get your issues resolved, protect you from scams, but the work we do to recover taxes from those that are non-compliant, it generally runs about a 6-to-1 ratio of $6 return for every $1 invested. So the return is enormous. And I just want to say, Dean, that it's interesting you say you have a lot on your plate. The reality is, and this is something that's really important to me, is that nothing gets done at the IRS without the workforce. And
90,000 people, I think.
It's 90,000 people. I have this unique opportunity to paint a vision for an organization that's moving to a much more digital set of solutions, but we're still hiring. And as I said in my remarks, we still need our people. And one of the biggest surprises that I've had, the pleasant surprise, is that this workforce is ready for change. They are passionate about building the capacity, gaining tools, taking on new training and new responsibilities to do more to serve taxpayers. And that is inspiring to me, that the workforce is passionate about better serving taxpayers.
So when you're successful in achieving your goals, the agency will be much more digital and efficient. Does that mean you need fewer employees? And if I'm an employee at the IRS, should I be worried about my job?
You should not be worried about your job. Look, that was kind of the vision, is not just all taxpayers can do all of their interactions with the IRS digitally if they choose. That's a key part of the vision. I refer to it as the keystone. The next part of the vision is, what does that unlock? That unlocks new capacity for our employees over time to be redeployed to do other things differently. And those other things are, as I said, to help people that need it the most. So as I mentioned, we have 7 million taxpayers around the country who are low income, eligible for the earned income tax credit, but don't apply for it. And we need our workforce working within these communities. Not all of these communities have access to computers and to go online. We need to meet them where they are. Last year, we started this thing we call pop-up walk-in centers, where we go to remote locations that aren't close to an existing walk-in center, and we set up shop and we work with low-income taxpayers there that need our help. But to say we could reach all those areas, there's so many more areas and underserved taxpayers that we need to reach. And so the amount of people that we have needs to be, right-sized to the size and complexity of our tax system and our taxpayers. So, again, we are not going to be able to be successful if we lose the workforce and the capacity they bring.
So let's start with the tax evaders. You said there are 25,000 that owe over $1 million in
Yes.
taxes. So who are these people that think they can get away with this, and how will technology enable the IRS to better find them and make sure that they pay their fair share?
So there's actually 125,000 taxpayers out there. 100,000 of them make more than $400,000 a year. 25,000 make more than $1 million, and they haven't filed a tax return since 2017. And we finally now have the fund. Here's the thing about having the funding. When we don't have the funding, it's not the letter that's expensive or finding the address. It's the follow-up. If we send a letter and we don't follow up, then none of our letters will have. So we have to wait until we have the capacity to follow up. And that's what the Inflation Reduction Act did. It allowed us to rehire all the people, to hire up to the right staffing level, to have the capacity. So now we can reach these non-filers, these tax delinquent millionaires and billionaires. And we're using technology, and this is really important because when I talk about this critical objective of increasing our enforcement on high wealth and large taxpayers, that's actually beneficial for all Americans, including high wealth and complex taxpayers. And here's why. Because if we invest in these capacities and get smarter and more precise using AI and data science and subject matter expertise, that means we're going to select the right cases for audit. And if you're doing the right thing, then we won't have to reach you. You can keep on doing the right thing and you won't have the expense of an IRS audit. And you'll know that others in your market, your competitors, are being held accountable to do the right thing. And that's part of why it is a virtuous circle, to ensure that we are investing in the ability to do scrutiny on these complex situations actually benefits the complex filers and creates a healthier U.S. economy.
Okay, so we've talked about high income. Let's talk about low income filers. So you were nice enough to do a roundtable with some students and Professor Leff's classes and also in Professor Bruckner's classes. They go out in the community around American University and help low-income Americans file taxes. And one of the things that one of the students said is that the level of trust of the IRS is extremely low, that some of their clients come in, including some that are not documented Americans, that they get an envelope and they will not even open it because they don't trust the IRS. And so what is behind that, and what are you doing to improve the level of trust?
Yeah, that is why it's such a central theme that we have to build trust, and we have to raise our game in terms of how we're communicating with taxpayers. We have to relook at our forms, our engagement strategies, so they're including more empathy. We have to do more partnerships with local communities that can help us demystify the IRS and explain that in many cases, we're reaching out to them to make sure that they understand what benefits and credits they may be eligible for. Like, part of it is announcing an ambition and what our true north is at the IRS. And I'm announcing and indicating our true north is to help low-income taxpayers gain access to the IRS for help, to get the credits they deserve, and so that we can help protect them from these scams, because it's low-income and vulnerable populations that tend to be more subject to these types of scams, tend to be more exploited more often. So it starts with setting the ambition, communicating it, but then we obviously have to walk the walk and back that up. And how do we back that up? We get out into the communities. We do these pop-up walk-in centers. We have things like we had this past weekend in 4 cities, Taxpayer Experience Days, where we open our doors and focus on training and working with low-income communities. But our partners are critical. Our partners, local community leaders and others, can help demystify this idea that if the IRS is in the midst, then you're at risk. What we want to do is create, especially for underserved populations, this idea that the IRS is here to help them, to provide support, to provide them access, and to make sure they're applying for economic lifeline benefits and credits that will help them.
So you mentioned your parents are in their 80s, and my dad actually turns 90 today.
Oh.
Let me tell you what happens with him. He files his taxes, and then he may call the IRS every day saying, when is my return coming? Okay.
Yes, I'm familiar with that profile of phone call.
Okay.
Yes.
I have your cell phone, I can give him. So how will your digital transformation strategy help someone like my dad?
Well, first of all, we already have tools online like Where's My Refund that we're continuing to invest and improve. Like, so for example, we created this filing season a virtual chat function so that you're texting back and forth with an IRS. If in some cases it's AI generated, in other cases it can be a live assister depending on the situation, but that's enabling people to get quick, easy from their smartphone access to us so they can have complete clarity. The idea around this individual account that has everything you could possibly need is that there's one-stop shop. And so maybe your 90-year-old dad doesn't feel as comfortable online, but you as his son or his grandkids can work with him to set up the online account and say, look, Grandpa, if you get a phone call from someone claiming to be the IRS, and by the way, these scammers, these imposters, they prey specifically on the elderly. And they've studied different scripts that they can use to trick the elderly into pulling out their credit card. And what we need to do is we need to get the word out and have public service announcements increasingly about how the IRS website can actually be the source of truth to determine whether that person, first of all, we rarely ever call you.
Right.
And when we do, which is very rare, we don't threaten with this immediate tax penalty. We don't make promises. We don't threaten deportation or immediate arrest. All of that.
So there's no sharing of information in the IRS with other agencies that could risk deportation or...
It's just not in the cards that if something is going to happen with the IRS that's significant, it's going to play out over many, many interactions. And again, we very, very rarely call you. So we need to get the word out increasingly through public service announcements, through our partners, through events like this, to set the reality of what we're trying to do and what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. My daughter, she's 22. She filed her taxes for the first time last year. I helped her. It was challenging because it's not that easy. If she were to file via paper, and let's say she's owed a refund, if she were to file via paper versus via direct filing, and she's owed a refund, how much faster will she get a refund if she files electronically and gives her bank account information versus what I do, which is send in a piece of paper? And
so we at the IRS, we strongly encourage electronic filing, and we strongly encourage you to select direct deposit. And our track record right now is we get refunds to people in under 21 days if you file electronically and you choose direct deposit. One of the things, and you mentioned direct file, just to clarify, what we're trying to do at the IRS is in building this more digitally relevant platform for your children and their children and so on, is to give them options. And so right now, and over the past several years, the way you file electronically and for free has been with a commercial software provider. This year, as I mentioned, we're piloting in 12 states, 19 million taxpayers are eligible, an option on the menu to file electronically direct for free. And if you do so and you select direct deposit, you'll get your refund if you're owed one in less than 21 days.
And if we didn't do it electronically, what would be, how much longer?
It could be 4x, 5 times, 6 times as long. And and plus, you're adding to the workload that we have to do to manage all that paper. And again, that means we're not helping the people that need the help the most. The more we get rid of paper, the more we drive people to our website and build a website that can do all these things that you can do with your favorite online bank, the more our people can focus on helping those people that are in dire straits because they've been a victim of identity theft. Look, I see the taxpayer advocate, Erin Collins, sitting right here. And each year she comes out a report on, I call it the What's Keeping You Up at Night report. And the number one thing on her report this past year was the long time it takes for those that have been victims of identity theft to get things sorted through the IRS. It takes way too long. We have to change that. We have to make it that if you are unfortunately a victim of identity theft, that you can get fast resolution from the IRS and get everything sorted quickly. That's when I say that a fully digital IRS unlocks our full potential. I mean that a fully digital IRS unlocks our potential to help victims speedily so that they're not losing sleep anymore and so that Erin is not losing sleep and that we're solving these problems more quickly. But there are still problems to solve, and that's why our employees are so critical that we need to, that's why we have a table outside, we're hiring, and we're working with our employees on making their journey at the IRS as fruitful and as rewarding as possible.
So I'm going to ask a couple more questions, and then we're going to take a few questions from students as well. So you have a table, you're recruiting.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you're recruiting not just folks that are accountants, but digital transformation experts, IT experts, lawyers. Why should someone want to work at the IRS? Why is it an attractive place for our students to work?
I think it's one word: impact. We touch every household in America, every business. The decisions that we make have significant impact, and we have a big plate of responsibilities to make the tax system work better for the American people. But it's not only that with respect to impact, and I mentioned this in my remarks. Over the last several decades, the tax laws have been increasingly leveraged to drive critically important policy issues. Some of the most important policy issues of our generation, income inequality, such as things like childhood poverty, healthcare access, climate change, all of those things are actually now implemented substantially through the tax system.
Right.
So it's people at the IRS hard at work on implementing, for example, the new energy tax credits under the Inflation Reduction Act. Many scholars and experts around the world feel that the tax credits that were implemented or that are enacted in the Inflation Reduction Act may be the most powerful legislative mechanism ever to drive industries to go green. And who's responsible for implementing this legislation? It's a lot of pressure, but also it's rewarding. And so if you're, sitting in class or thinking about your career and you want to help Americans with this fundamental civic responsibility, we have a lot of work for you. But if you're interested in also working to implement tax laws that are driving things like helping low income, increasing healthcare access, addressing climate change, we have work for you. And that is, I think, a powerful message for those that are interested in public service.
Just want to mention there's some students coming and going for classes, so that's normal here. All right, my last question is, let's assume you're successful, and as you've been in pretty much everything you've done, how will the IRS look differently in 4 or 5 years than it does today?
Yeah, well, I want to state that one of my philosophies of leadership is to recognize that I haven't always been successful, that I've had failures and setbacks and triumphs. What I've always tried to do is when I take one step back, take 2 steps forward. And what I've tried to do in this job is bring to the table experience, not only my experience, but experiences from across industries and government agencies. What are the preconditions for success? What are the preconditions for failure? And let's build a strategy that maximizes our probability of success and minimizes our probability of failure. So I look back to my failures and my setbacks as learning, and I draw inspiration from it. But what the IRS will look like is essentially, what it will look like is a very high-functioning website, digital platform where whatever you need to get done in the basics, making a payment, understanding whether I owe, what's my current status, I need a transcript, I want to know what happened a couple of years ago, I need to pull up a historic record, all of it is at your fingertips. But then as a robust workforce that we're building today, still behind the scenes, but deployed into places where we're helping people that can't afford to hire an accountant or a lawyer, that are struggling to navigate our very complicated tax laws, and that we're there to meet them where they are and provide them world-class customer service, not digitally, but in person, and walking them through in an empathetic way to get them what they need. And on the other side, we're building a workforce that is becoming increasingly effective in piercing through the complexity, finding where people are shielding income, large corporations, and then creating equity in our enforcement. That's what the Inflation Reduction Act is intended to buy. And as I mentioned, we're making momentum. We have a lot more work to do, but we're off to, I think, a great start.
That's great. So let's open it up to a couple of student. How much time do we have, Leona? We're good. 10, 15. Okay. Who wants to ask the first question? Which student? Maybe just. We have some microphones. Identify yourself and.
Hi, I'm Cameron Johnson. I'm a sophomore here at AU, and I'm hopefully going to end my schooling experience with a master's degree in forensic accounting, so I very well might be working at the IRS. I had a prepared question, but as you were speaking, I think I came up with a better one. You really touched on the point of radical positivity, which differs from optimism, as optimism kind of has a tricky way of kind of clouding what's going on, but radical positivity more so just direct things to stay positive as you're talking about the American public's perception of the IRS. So us as young people and with the sort of outlook towards the IRS and towards government in our generation, how do we push forward in our communities the radical positivity that you proposed here today during this talk? Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a good question. I start with, some myth busting. To understand what is at stake, in terms of the types of programs that the IRS is running that are intended to help people. It's not just about tax collection, but it's also to the extent you're worried and you have stress and anxiety over what you owe or what you think you may owe. It's creating an environment where people increasingly see the IRS as a source of help, as a mechanism that could potentially reduce stress because we can get your answer quickly. Now, to do that, we have lots of investments we need to make. We have to have the right number of people ready to help. We have to make and create partnerships. We have this very important program of volunteer tax clinics around the country. It's so inspiring. These are people that volunteer their time to help low-income people do their taxes. It reduces their stress and anxiety, but it also gets them access to benefits. There is so much more that we can do to grow and strengthen our volunteer program around the country. I think that as people see us out in the communities working to help low income, working to help underserved, working, for example, partnering with the Departments of Veterans Affairs to help veterans, which are often targeted by these types of scams and schemes, I think we start to change minds and people to start to see that this ambition that we're communicating, that we're putting resources behind it and we're putting sweat equity behind it. It starts at home. It starts with our employees, motivating them, having them understand what the mission is and what the ambition and what the direction that we're taking. But it's also partners. We talk a lot directly to taxpayers, but as critical, the local groups that get involved through these volunteer tax clinics, the local groups that are involved with our taxpayer experience days. We've partnered with organizations like the United Way. Like those are the types of efforts that may not make it to the front page of the newspaper or the headline, but my sense is that we win hearts and minds on the local level not the national level. And that requires us to change the way we're communicating and engaging. Look, we issue press releases from the IRS. We will continue to do so. I'll do national speeches and things like that. But I also plan, as IRS Commissioner, to get increasingly out into local communities. And I want our leadership team and our staff to do that, because I think that's the ground game that's needed to change the way people think and understand and perceive the IRS.
Great question. Next question. Yes, in the back. Maybe just introduce yourself and...
Hey, Commissioner, nice presentation. My name is Jimmy Kato. I'm an accounting analytics student here at Kogod from Uganda. Over 10 years of tax administration with the Uganda Revenue Authority. I'm glad to hear some of the things you've talked about, like ensuring you do not actually think of tax administration as a way of enforcing rules here and there. The non-filers was also intriguing, because in Uganda we have a lot of non-filers. So I thought here actually people are filing. Now, my question is, over the weekend I talked to an international student, a fellow international student like me, and he said some of the tax filing softwares that we use shouldn't be used by us international students. Are there specific softwares for us international students and others for citizens? Like TurboTax, I'm told, is for citizens. SpringTax is for us international students. I went for TurboTax because of the refund. Thank you.
Now, thanks for the question. So, look, this is part of this expansion we have to do to make sure that we are meeting taxpayers where they are. Some taxpayers are, kind of U.S. citizens in cities. Some are in rural locations. Some are international with their, homes in overseas, but they're here and they're working and they're earning income and they're creating a tax responsibility. And each of those unique situations can create unique products or menu options that we have to provide. And unfortunately, if we're not comprehensive, then certain taxpayer groups will fall through the cracks and they'll say, I've gone to your menu, there's nothing on here that meets my needs. And so I'm really glad you asked the question. As an example, I mentioned a few times we have this new pilot for this direct file solution where you can file electronically for free directly with the IRS. Right now, we're in 12 states, 19 million people. One of the number one questions I get is, when are you coming to my state? And the other question is, am I eligible? And so what I want to make sure that we're doing is looking across different taxpayer groups and making sure that no taxpayers are slipping through the cracks that need this type of solution and digital experience. So I will take that question back and make sure that we're understanding that there's a community of taxpayers out there that may not be U.S. citizens, they may be here, but they have a tax responsibility, and what are our tools for them? So I appreciate the question.
Yes, over here.
Hi, my name is Harrison Kenner. I'm a student, grad student in School of Public Affairs, political science. So my question is to you. The IRS just seems to have like a branding, marketing issue. Like, I know that you guys are not the ones that come up with a tax code. You just enforce it. How do you see yourselves getting around that? So like, when, my undergrad was in education. So one of my favorite stories that I told my students was one of the worst days of my life was when I got my first paycheck and I was really excited to get it. And then half of it was gone because of the IRS. And I realized I had to pay taxes for the first time. And just like going through that, and like I understand like what those taxes go towards, like now that I'm like, 12 years removed from that experience as like a teenager getting the first paycheck. But like when you're a teenager, you don't realize that. It's just like, oh, like that money's gone forever. Like I'm never going to get it back.
I still feel like that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like emotionally, yes, I do. But like logically, like I understand like that money is going somewhere. And like Congress is never going to come out and be like, yeah, guys, like we took that money. Like we just told the IRS, like you have to go get it. So like, how do you deal with that branding issue as the guy in charge of the IRS?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I showed the video of Homer booing us because I recognize that that we are iconically unpopular across America, and you know, a part of that is okay, and here's what I mean by that. You know, one of the analogies that I've thought about in terms of the IRS as I spend more time there is we're kind of like an NFL referee. When we get the call wrong, 80,000 people will boo us. When we get the call right, 80,000 people will boo us. If we show on the screen the instant replay that we got the call right, 80,000 people will boo us. And that's okay. That's part of it. But without the referee, there's no game. It's chaos. And nobody's going to throw, at the end of the Super Bowl, no one's planning a parade for the referees. And that's okay too. The referees can go home at night knowing that they are a critical part of what made this special event happen and what makes this thing that entertains millions of Americans each year, and they should be proud. And we should be proud of what we do. So the branding is not necessarily about popularity. The branding is more about what we're trying to achieve and what we're working hard to do. And I do think, and I think the IRS can certainly help, I think there needs to be a broader messaging in civics classes and across the U.S. about the positive impact the government can have. I mean, when you woke up this morning, the government touched you positively 5 times before breakfast. We have etched in the IRS headquarters on the wall outside a quote from Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes: "Taxes are what we pay for civilized society." I mention safe roads, safe skies, safe food. I think about the fact that when I'm getting on an airplane and I'm strapping myself in, I look down the aisle, I see my kids strapping themselves in, I see my wife. I think about the fact that, there's air traffic controllers that are busy making sure that we're going to get to Florida or California or wherever we're going safely. I think about all the inspections that these planes have gone through, all the safety standards that have made air travel in the U.S. and internationally so safe. And for me, I think taxes are worth it for the road system that we have and the transportation, or the fact that if I go out to dinner tonight, I don't have to worry about toxins in the food or getting sick. That is what you get from your taxes. And that is an education that I think we owe it to ourselves to be more thankful and think about more impactfully. And I celebrate people like the Service for America Awards at the Partnership for Public Service because they're celebrating these teams from NASA that are taking steps potential save humanity. And I also want to make a comment about Doreen Greenwald, who's here, who's the president of NTU, our employees union. These are, and we have both unionized and non-unionized workers, but they're all coming to work every day to try to make a difference and make the whole system work better. And I think they're part of our branding. I got a phone call from a friend who said was helping his mom with an IRS issue. His mom was ailing and not lucid as she once was, and he had to go get something, and he held her online with the IRS representative. And when he got back, the IRS representative was reminding him of things that he had promised his mom 5 minutes earlier that he would do. And he's just like, you probably don't get this a lot, but I just want to tell you how wonderful this woman was and how much she helped my mom and me through this stressful situation. And that is actually more, that's what I hear more than I hear about like IRS intimidation that warrants boos. That is what I'm proud of, and we have to get that message out more. And people like Doreen are fighting every day to make sure that the image of the government employee is warranted to what it should be, which is these people are putting in the time and effort to try to help people.
I would say during the COVID crisis, the IRS helped keep food on people's tables, lights on, and shelters in place.
Yeah, I mean, the IRS, was shut down like the rest of the world, but we came back early. And we came back at a time where there was still a lot of confusion about the COVID virus and about what it meant. And but the paper was piling up. You can't shut down the IRS operations for too long without having significant mission-critical issues. So our employees came back in, masked, social distance. They had to redo their processes to open all that paper in a much different environment. And importantly, and this is where I come back to impact, when the government and America needed to distribute emergency payments to Americans and small businesses across the country to keep our economy afloat so that people could keep food on the table and really create an economic lifeline, it was the IRS that did it. And why? Because the IRS has the infrastructure, because we touch every household. We were the logical choice to do all the organization and logistics that was necessary to make sure that every American got their emergency payment. Again, we're the refs. No one's going to throw a parade for us, and that's okay. But I really do think it's important that these stories are told, maybe in education environments like American University, but also in high school civics classes and others about what public servants do and the impact they can have.
Well, Commissioner Danny Werfel, thank you for coming to Kogod to share your vision. Thank you for laying out this vision. And most importantly, thank you for your service to our country.
Well, thank you. Thank you all.